Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. This is part 2 of our series on the Brewster Buffalo during the Malayan Campaign. December 8, 1941 marked the grim day for British and Commonwealth forces in Malaya. The Japanese army seized the crucial airfield at Kota Baru and dealt heavy blows to British and Commonwealth bomber and fighter units. Brewster Buffalo pilots faced enemy aircraft several times that day. On 2 occasions, their attacks on Japanese bombers failed due to jammed machine guns. Twice, they encountered Japanese fighters. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Buffalo pilots managed to escape without losses. However, many aircraft were destroyed on the ground, leaving RAAF's 21 Squadron with only a handful of operational Buffaloes. Forced to evacuate their airfield at Sungai Patani, the squadron relocated to Butterworth. At 10:40 a.m., 2 of the remaining Buffaloes, flown by flying officers Jeff Shepard and Daryl Sproul, were sent on a reconnaissance mission across the Thai border. There, they spotted a column of 12 to 15 Japanese light tanks. Remarkably, a soldier in the column waved the Japanese flag, apparently mistaking the Buffaloes for friendly aircraft. This confusion likely allowed the 2 Australian pilots to attack the column without drawing anti-aircraft fire. Shortly after, they also attacked the transport column, claiming 4 trucks destroyed. Despite suffering heavy losses, the RAF was still able to mount an attack on the Japanese-occupied airbase at Singora in Thailand. RAF's 34 and 60 squadrons combined forces, sending 6 Bristol Blenheim bombers, both Mark 1s and Mark 4s, represented here by the newer variant, to strike the crowded airfield. The British bombers, flying without escort, were met by fierce Japanese fighter opposition. Although they managed to drop their bombs, the RAF crews couldn't clearly observe the results of their attack. Japanese Ki-27 fighters from the 1st and 11th Sentai intercepted the bombers, claiming to have shot down 5. Two of these claims were made by Naoharu Shiromoto, an ace with 11 victories. In reality, 3 Blenheims were lost. Even so, the RAF planned another raid on Singora, which continued to launch frequent Japanese attacks. This time, 4 Buffaloes from RAAF's 21 Squadron were assigned as escorts. The fighters were piloted by Flight Lieutenants Richard McKenney, Fred Williams, Max White, and Flying Officer Harold Montefiore. After reaching the rendezvous point and circling for at least 40 minutes, the Buffalo pilots were forced to abort the mission and return to base. The bombers never appeared. Meanwhile, the Blenheims were caught on the ground during another Japanese attack, and all but 1 were destroyed. As the Buffaloes returned from their aborted escort mission, they were attacked. Flight Lieutenant Williams later recalled being swarmed by a horde of Zeros. However, this is unlikely. The attackers could have been Ki-43 Oscars, which Allied pilots often confused with the more famous Navy fighter. I could only find evidence of the fixed landing gear Ki-27s being involved, however. A chaotic dogfight erupted. Williams struggled with poor visibility. Grease from his machine gun rounds had smeared his windscreen. At one point, he nearly shot down his comrade McKenney, but radios worked this time, and McKenney managed to warn him. Both Williams and McKenney decided to break off and land at Butterworth. On the ground, they saw another large formation of Japanese bombers and fighters approaching, but the ground crew was in shelters, and the refueling hoses were padlocked. Despite being nearly out of fuel and unable to fill up their tanks, Williams and McKinney took off again. They managed to engage the bombers right over the airstrip, but at least 3 escorting fighters, again reported as Zeros, pursued the Buffaloes. The 2 pilots split up. McKinney was quickly shot down over the sea. He bailed out, suffering severe facial burns, but was eventually rescued. Flight Lieutenant Williams now faced 3 Japanese fighters, which he again identified as Zeros. After a while, his machine guns jammed, forcing him to disengage and attempt a landing. Some Japanese fighters followed, but Williams led them through anti-aircraft fire, causing them to pause their attack. As Williams came in to land, his fuel tanks finally ran dry, and he was forced to make a dead stick landing. He jumped out and dashed to a bunker just before the Japanese fighters strafed and destroyed his Buffalo on the ground. Meanwhile, the other 2 Buffaloes, flown by Flight Lieutenant Max White and Flying Officer Harold Montefiore, remained airborne, locked in a desperate fight. Montefiore managed to hit the Japanese fighter, claiming a Zero shot down. This was likely 12th Victory Ace, Sergeant Major Tokuyasu Ishizuka of the 11th Sentai, who force-landed his Ki-27. Ishizuka claimed 2 enemy aircraft shot down in the battle, and after his forced landing, managed to evade capture. This marked the first victory claim for Buffalo pilots in the Malayan Campaign. However, Montefiore was shot down just minutes later. He bailed out and landed safely. The only Buffalo to survive was flown by Flight Lieutenant White, though his aircraft was badly damaged. White managed the forced landing on Penang Island's airstrip. Despite the damage, his Buffalo was considered repairable. If the first day of war was tough for the RAF and Commonwealth forces in Malaya, the second day proved even harsher. Number 21 Royal Australian Air Force Squadron was evacuated from Butterworth to Ipoh, with only 2 Buffaloes left. The Buffalo pilots had claimed their first confirmed victory, matched by a known Japanese loss, but they also suffered their first air combat casualties. The Blenheim force in northern Malaya was decimated. From an original 47 airframes, only 10 remained, and just 2 were operational. The Japanese invaders continued their advance, but the campaign was far from over. We'll continue this dramatic story in future episodes. Thanks for watching.